Welcome to the first in a series of informational tutorials designed to acquaint you with the changes in the recently reauthorized Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, and help us to transition our program and services to the new act. The good news is that WIOA builds upon the strong partnerships and initiatives that we have already been doing here at CPCC for the last several years. These tutorials have been adapted from presentations prepared by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education. This first tutorial is designed to give you a general understanding of the structure of the entire Act, in other words, the big picture. It also provides information about the transition from the Workforce Investment Act to WIOA, and will help you to know what to expect in the coming months. We will also examine actions you can begin taking now to get ready for the new legislation. The second tutorial focuses more specifically on Title II, Adult Education and Literacy, and on particular provisions related to your program's operation and how it fits into the overall workforce development system. After proposed regulations are developed by the U.S. Departments of Labor and Education and released in January 2015, additional tutorials will be developed to provide more specific guidance. Adult education has adapted over the years to ensure that our students have the skills they need to prosper. In decades past, being able to read and write was enough, and adult education was a social justice issue. Later, a GED was required for work, family, and community responsibilities. Then, the field of adult education began to specialize and contextualize its programs. Today, our students need skills to obtain jobs with family-sustaining incomes. A GED is no longer enough. Integrating education with occupational training prepares our students for 21st century jobs. And adult education cannot prepare students alone. We need partner agencies and organizations. WIOA requires and supports those partnerships that enable us to provide the skills our students need to prosper. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act reauthorizes the Workforce Investment Act, which was due for reauthorization in 2003. It represents the first major reform in the United States workforce system in over a decade. It encourages new opportunities for collaboration across the federal and state agencies and strengthens partnerships. It stresses a shared commitment to improve training and employment opportunities for individuals with barriers to employment, such as the students we serve. The Act emphasizes accountability and establishes common performance measures across all titles. WIOA also supports and makes investments in innovative and promising models, something that is underscored throughout the Act. The structure of the Act has remained largely the same as in the Workforce Investment Act. It still contains 5 titles, adult education is still a freestanding title in the Act, and the Act, for the most part, reauthorizes the programs contained in WIA. The Act contains a definition section that establishes common definitions across the titles. A new definition of career pathway is one example of a definition that applies to all titles in the Act. This definition, as you see, is certainly consistent with our current pathways model. The definitions also establish core programs consisting of the adult and dislocated worker and youth programs, as well as the Wagner-Pizer Employment Services Program administered by the U.S. Department of Labor, and the Adult Education and Literacy and the Vocational Rehabilitation Programs administered by the U.S. Department of Education. Now, let's take a quick look at what each of the 5 titles includes. Title I includes 2 subtitles that differ from WIA. Subtitle A is focused on system alignment and promotes integration of the core programs into the workforce development system. Subtitle B includes provisions for the one-stop delivery system. Subtitle A requires states to submit a single unified plan that outlines a 4-year strategy for the core programs. A unified plan was optional under WIA. WIOA requires it to further emphasize the need to integrate and coordinate workforce development services. The subtitle contains a chapter that identifies how states must form state workforce boards and outlines the functions of those boards. Subtitle A also establishes local workforce areas and local workforce development boards, which are responsible for developing local plans aligned with the state unified plan. This provision will directly impact the manner in which you apply for federal funds from the state office. More information on local plans is included in the second tutorial. In an effort to improve accountability and collaboration in data collection and reporting, the law also establishes common performance measures across the core programs, including adult education and literacy. We will examine these as well in the second tutorial. Title I includes 2 subtitles that differ from WIA. Subtitle A is focused on system alignment and promotes integration of the core programs into the workforce development system. Subtitle B includes provisions for the one-stop delivery system. Subtitle A requires states to submit a single unified plan that outlines a 4-year strategy for the core programs. A unified plan was optional under WIA. WIOA requires it to further emphasize the need to integrate and coordinate workforce development services. The subtitle contains a chapter that identifies how states must form state workforce boards and outlines the functions of those boards. Subtitle A also establishes local workforce areas and local workforce development boards, which are responsible for developing local plans aligned with the state unified plan. This provision will directly impact the manner in which we apply for federal funds from the state office. More information on local plans is included in the second tutorial. In an effort to improve accountability and collaboration in data collection and reporting, the law also establishes common performance measures across the core programs, including adult education and literacy. We will examine these as well in the second tutorial. Subtitle B establishes the one-stop system and includes provisions that are aimed at aligning services across the core programs and other required partners in the one-stop system, including the TANF and post-secondary Perkins programs. Since adult education is a core program, this means we will play a pivotal role in the one-stop system. Responsibilities of core and required partners include dedicating a portion of funds to contribute to one-stop infrastructure and other costs. More guidance on this provision will be available after the U.S. Departments of Labor and Education release their proposed regulations on January 20, 2015. Subtitle B also reauthorizes the Adult and Dislocated Worker Program and the In-School and Out-of-School Youth Program. One particular change could have direct impact on us. The youth program recognizes the importance of serving and connecting out-of-school youth to education and employment opportunities and focuses on providing services to disconnected youth by requiring the percentage of funds used to assist out-of-school youth under the program be a minimum of 75% compared to the 30% under WIA. This can have important implications for our program since we serve a large percentage of out-of-school youth and could be eligible to apply for some of these funds. A more detailed overview of Title II will be provided in the second tutorial. Key changes, however, include the expansion of its purpose and the establishment of new activities for which Title II funds can be used. It codifies the English Literacy and Civics program into the Integrated English Literacy and Civics Education Program and places a strong focus on career pathways. It encourages activities that support alignment with the workforce development system and the Unified State Plan. This is one of many reasons why it is so important to have strong partnerships with your local workforce development board. Title II also requires states to use rigorous content standards and increases the focus on evaluation activities. The purpose of Title III, Wagner-Peiser and Employment Service, is to provide integrated high-quality services for workers, job seekers, and businesses through the one-stop delivery system. WIOA increases accessibility of services for job seekers and employers by requiring co-location of the Wagner-Peiser Employment Service in the one-stop system and improved access for unemployment insurance claimants. Title IV provides funds to state vocational rehabilitation agencies to support a wide range of services designed to help individuals with disabilities prepare for and engage in employment opportunities. Title IV amendments aim to increase opportunities, especially for individuals with disabilities who face barriers to employment, and invests in the important connections between education and career preparation. It emphasizes services to youth with disabilities. Finally, Title V includes general provisions for a smooth transition from WIA to WIOA, including the issuance of regulations and timeframes from the U.S. Departments of Education and Labor. So what do we know at this point about the implementation timeline? When does the new act take effect? When can you expect to see a new funding application process? The Act provides effective dates of implementation. Many of the provisions will be clarified in the regulations required in the Act, especially those related to unified plans and the performance accountability system. The proposed regulations must be published by January 20th, 2015, and final regulations must be published 1 year after that. States must submit unified plans before March 3, 2016. That means that a new local funding application will probably be in place for the 2016-2017 program year. You probably have a lot of questions that were not covered in this tutorial. Remember, the second and subsequent tutorials cover more specific questions related to Title II, Adult Education and Literacy. However, it is also important to remember that there are several questions that cannot be answered at this time until the regulations are released in January by the U.S. Departments of Labor and Education. In the meantime, let's look at a few of the things we can do now to begin planning for implementation of WIOA. CPCC's relationship with Charlotte Works and area agencies is very important. WIOA requires the core programs to be represented on the local Workforce Development Board, but also requires the integration, coordination, and support of services. Additionally, local applications for federal adult education funding must also be presented to Charlotte Works for review. So we will continue to build and strengthen our relationship with Charlotte Works. We have already had one meeting with Steve Partridge, CEO of Charlotte Works, to discuss ways in which our two organizations can expand our partnerships through WIOA. WIOA has multiple references to the importance of career pathways in the workforce development system. Pathways has a variety of effective pathways in various occupational sectors. This experience will bode well with the new legislation. Unlike WIA, WIOA recognizes and encourages pathways that involve co-enrollment between our adult education program and a post-secondary training provider. During the next 2 years, we need to look at ways to expand our pathways offerings, ensure they are aligned to and included in the pathways frameworks developed by Charlotte Works, provide more flexibility and options for part-time students as well as adult high school students. As mentioned previously, Title I funds for out-of-school youth programming increases under WIA from 30 to 75%. This source of funding is in addition to federal dollars we currently receive through Title II, so this could provide a source for increased funding. Career pathway models that encompass career exploration and planning, guidance and counseling, support services, student leadership and service opportunities, Integrated education and training, internships, and job placement assistance can be a very effective package for out-of-school youth. By planning now on how we can provide these comprehensive services, we will have ample time to build an effective and competitive option for out-of-school youth. Many of our instructors are integrating the college and career readiness standards for adult education into instruction. Our 2 new curriculum coaches are beginning to meet with their work groups to initiate and expand our curriculum development efforts to align with these standards. In 2 years, under WIOA, the national reporting system will be aligned to the CCR standards. So we will want to make sure that our program's instruction mirrors the rigor of these standards. This concludes the first tutorial. Please view the second tutorial that focuses on Title II Adult Education and Literacy for more specific information that we know at this time. At the end of each tutorial, we will continue to add to the list of things you can begin doing now in preparation for the new Act. Remember, we have time to get ready for WIOA, so take your time and do it right. Our students depend on it.